So here's an argument for both theists and atheists. I don't even know if I'm going to upload this as a video. This is going to be just purely thoughts, okay? For God and against God. For God, you have arguments like the fine-tuning argument, right? And that argument holds up until you scrutinize it with your own subjective ideals. Okay, so if I, as an atheist, argue fine tuning is not real, what I would say is 70% of Earth is made out of water, undrinkable water, and we are made up of water, and we need drinkable water. That alone means that Earth was not made for us. We had to evolve to be able to survive on Earth, or that the majority of Earth is uninhabitable. That is not proof for fine tuning, it is proof that we evolved to survive. But then you also have the argument that I did not live. How do I say this? I'm not even going to cut this video up a whole bunch. I'm going to try and do this in one take. There's also the argument for fine tuning. Okay, so let's think about this. We as humans are the strongest survivors, right? You could take that and say that we are special, which evolution would disagree with, but we're gonna not think about that right now. We're gonna take one subject at a time. So that would say that we are special, that we are the only creatures on this planet to really take control of the planet. No other creature takes over mankind because of our intelligence. So we are special because of how intelligent we are. So you could also take that argument and push that into we specifically were made for this universe. But the issue with that goes into this. You have to then prove that you were made and that the earth was made for you, right? So you have to then prove that earth was made for you. Okay, so let's go into that one. Was the earth made for you? This is where it gets really difficult and why Christianity specifically can become dangerous to society. Here is the main argument for why and how creationists believe the way that they do. And this is coming from someone that was a hardcore believer, okay? I was apologetically preaching. Okay, so let's go back to that. I guess I am gonna have to cut some. I lost my train of thought. So, to be a Christian and to truly believe the Bible, to truly believe that the world is made for you, to truly believe all of that, to truly accept fine tuning, you then have to deny science, okay? Because you have to deny evolution. And we have mountains of evidence for evolution. So if you're going to deny evolution to allow you to believe in fine tuning, that opens up a massive world of fallacies, because then you are not able to trust science because you can't trust evolution to prove why you became a human and prove why we exist and are still alive and as smart as we are. You then therefore are unable to trust all of science. So when you don't trust all of science, you don't trust professionals, you don't trust scholars, you don't trust scientists. That is where anti-vaxxers come from, okay? Because in order to accept fine tuning, you have to believe that somebody out there created this theory of evolution to brainwash the masses into not believing in God. This is where religion becomes a danger to society, okay? To be able to accept fine tuning, to be able to accept the Bible in its truest form, you are unable to trust science. That is dangerous. If you don't trust science, you don't trust vaccines, If you don't trust vaccines, you become unhealthy and or harm other people. You spread bacterias that can kill people. It becomes a very dangerous thing. But then let's add into that. You can even research that biasly, and you can see that there are people that die when they get a vaccine. Or you can see that somebody that had something like Down syndrome happened to get Down syndrome after having a vaccine. Or somebody that wasn't showing signs of sickness ended up dying after getting a vaccine because the vaccine happened to make the symptoms worse. So then you don't trust anything, really. And the only thing you are then able to trust is the Bible. So just from the argument of fine-tuning, you end up not trusting anything except for the Bible. That is indoctrination. To where, in order to believe something, you have to refuse evidence in order to believe that. And that is why, specifically on X and Instagram, I push so hard the faith definition that faith is belief without evidence. Because again, there's evidence for evolution. There's evidence for the Big Bang. That's why we believe in it. That's why we accept it. Believe is, I know that's going to be taken out of context. Those of you who have brains will understand what I mean. That's the reason we accept those theories. And theory, you believe in this theory, this unproven theory. No. A scientific theory is a noun for something that is able to pass the most scrutinized, the most rigorous testing there is possible. And it passes it and becomes a law, or the closest thing to absolute truth that we can get. Science does not claim absolute truths. Science is always evolving, always growing, always learning. And that's what really separates theists versus atheists. The theist is going to make up any excuse to believe in, let's say, Christianity, the Bible. I did it. And that creates confirmation bias. And that is incredibly dangerous, because right back to starting at a simple argument like fine-tuning. Or let's throw in the cosmological argument, okay? You're a Christian. There is no way that this universe created itself from nothing. There's no way. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed, right? No, wrong, actually. Science has been able to create matter. So that's out of the way. But then you have to argue with atheists on that. Goodness, that gets deep. The whole point of this video, that was a ramble. I don't know if I'm ever going to make a video like this again. We'll see how well this video does. If you like this video, like it so I know to do more of it. And since I figured out my point as quickly as I did, I'm probably not going to cut this like at all. This is going to flop. So this is where I love epistemology, because you can look at this. This is peanuts. How do I know that it's a peanut, right? That's epistemology. How do I know that I know that it's a peanut? That's epistemology, getting into the deep. But when you question literally everything, it becomes dangerous, because there is a point where there is proof. Okay, even epistemology requires logical reasoning. And if you want to find an actual truth, it still requires evidence. Okay, so when I first tried learning epistemology, I remember specifically one of the rules was, is it raining? Why is it raining? How do I know that it's raining? Walk outside. That's how you know. So epistemology helps you find answers, or find a question that needs to be answered, but then you use science to find the answer. Atheists and science don't have all the answers. No, I do not know what was before the Big Bang. Not a freaking clue. But that does not equal I don't know, therefore God. That's not a correct response. We don't know right now, but we also didn't know that Earth was round. Given also, if you go back in culture, you had correct reasoning to believe Earth was flat. There was no evidence to believe otherwise. If you truly want to be correct in things, you have to follow evidence, even if you're wrong. Because guess what? The evidence will eventually prove that you're wrong. And one day, there could be proof of a God. Maybe God from the Bible, any of the Hindu gods might come down and appear in person and say, hey, I'm fucking real, guys. Like, there could be proof one day. We don't know. And it's okay to not know. And I think that's what scares theists the most. It scared me. I was absolutely terrified of death, and it's taken me a couple of years to get over that fear. But there are absolutes to this world, and it's okay, and it's kind of beautiful that there's not as well, because the idea that we don't have proof of or proof against a God, it's kind of a beautiful thing. Or the idea that we don't, for instance, let me go back to that. Not having proof of a God means there isn't really reasonable reason to accept belief in a God. What does that mean for purpose? That means you only have one life. So instead of saying, oh, I'll get to do this in heaven, or oh, I'll get to learn this in heaven, or I'll do that later, I'll be alive again anyway. Then you have to think, this is my only life. Am I truly enjoying it? There's a chance you die and go to heaven or hell. We don't know for an absolute fact, but there's no evidence for heaven or hell. There's zero evidence for heaven and hell. If there were not books talking about heaven and hell, we wouldn't believe in it because there's no evidence for it. That is why when you find new tribes, they don't believe in our gods. They worship the sun, they worship the moon, they worship trees because that's evidence of something that brings life. The closest thing to a God that we have is the sun. The closest thing to God we have is a tree. Those things bring life. Water is the closest thing to a God. If you don't have water, you die. If you don't have food, you die. Food is the closest thing to a God. Like, you need evidence, which is the whole reason I made this channel, because I was closed-minded. And it was thanks to one person that I was able to be corrected, accept the correction. I cried. The day that I was arguing with this person, and I was like, if Jesus existed and everything that Jesus said actually happened, then that is proof enough for me that God exists. All of Christianity lays on Jesus. So then you go back. It's still kind of a question on, did Jesus exist? There's no hard evidence that Jesus existed. It's pretty much a overall consensus that he did exist, but there's no extra biblical proof that Jesus did anything, like, at all. So that gets so in depth with so many questions. I have a lot more that I want to talk about. If you guys enjoy a video like this, let me know so I can make more. I have a million more thoughts I could go through and talk about a lot more things, talk about a lot more religions, talk about a lot, etc., etc., etc. Let me know. Comment below. Watch more of my videos. Comment on those ones. Tell me which ones you liked, which ones I should and shouldn't do. I'm going to keep on doing whatever. We're going to figure this out together. Channel's growing quick. I really appreciate everyone, all the love. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.